Hey guys, it is me, it is your boy, Jason Wwwc here. Now I'm gonna say this. The comic book industry has changed. It used to be just like 10 pages and a piece of cardboard in a plastic sleeve, a see-through plastic sleeve. That used to be the comic book of the day. Back when the comic books, well, the history of comic books dates back to the funnies. That is where the genesis of the very comic book industry. And the funnies were, in fact, the kind of thing that gave birth to the comic book industry, because they've originated from the newspapers. That's the genesis of the very comic book industry. That's where it all started. And truth be told is that the comic book industry was changing. It jumped from the funnies, which was the precursor to the comic book industry that we know now. And the comic book industry that we know now has been relegated to what it is in this day and age. And I'm just going to say it. The comic book industry has changed so much, and the game changed. The game of drawing the characters, drawing the scenes, drawing the boxes for the scenes, drawing the dialogue and thought bubbles and the action bubbles, writing the action bubble, writing the sound effects for the comic books, and writing the dialogue, and then writing the monologue to the characters in their thoughts, and writing the narration blocks and the narration in of itself. And it's a known fact that a lot of comic books originated from the funnies. And you'd have to be old as shit to remember the funnies being in the newspaper articles and in the newspaper clippings. Kids back in those days were waiting for the new edition of the funnies to come out. And that was the comic books of the time. And this is episode 1 of the origins of the comic books. And the comic books changed. but the art style has changed with it as well. We all know that the comic book industry has changed. And how it changed, we all know this. We all know that when the comic book industry has changed, we all know it changed for the crazy amount of time that every single person wound up having to wait. We all know that when the comic book industry changed, it changed a lot. And when the comic book industry changed, guess what changed with the comic book industry? The comic book industry's like target audience grew up big time. Yep, the comic book industry's very own audience grew up with it. And that's how we all ended up with the very comic book industry we have. And the very comic book industry that we have started back in the funnies era. And it was long before social media ever happened. And when the comic book industry changed, they branched out to independent comic book work. And yeah, the comic book industry changed. And when the comic book industry changed, what happened? We all know how this ends. And how this ends this episode is this. The comic book industry wound up going and predating back to when the whole comic book industry happened to be of said independent works. We had DC, we had Marvel, but we have a third faction, the newest faction. Yep, we have the new faction. The newest faction, the invincible faction of comic books. But we all know that the internet had its fair share of comics and comic strips. Some of them were from, or if not, all of the internet comics either came from the webtoons or DeviantArt or something. And we all know how DeviantArt is all full of either goofy ass shit or strange weird shit or perverted shit. Mostly perverted shit on DeviantArt. And that's a fact. And yeah. And every time I go on DeviantArt, I see perverted stuff. Either perverted or homo stuff. Which is creepy, by the way. I find homo shit very creepy. Regardless of who is.